Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Executive Cyber Education Podcast. This podcast will discuss, evaluate, and educate you on a topic of cybersecurity strategy, governance, risk, and compliance. I'm Dr. B, your host. Today's episode, we will discuss threat reports, specifically 8 from 2019 reports. The 2019 Data Breach Investigation Report by Verizon, 2019 Data Breach Investigation Report, the executive summary by Verizon as well, the 2019 Annual Report, State of Cybersecurity by Security in Depth, Cybersecurity Report by darkmatter, Q2 2019 Cybersecurity threatscape by Positive Technologies, 2019 Cybersecurity Risk Report by Aon, the 2019 Global Threat Report by CrowdStrike, and finally, Cyber Threatscape 2020 by FireEye. Our discussion will focus on what these reports don't say and how you use them in your cybersecurity organization. Ready? Let's get started. One thing these reports don't discuss, and that is important for you to know, is how to use them to your benefit is cyber risk. Cyber risk was discussed in broad terms in most reports. However, it often drove a discussion on cybersecurity threat versus cybersecurity risk itself. Granted, cyber risk will be different to each organization and industry. However, a more concerted effort to discuss cyber risk would have been nice, wouldn't it? FireEye, for example, in their report, they had one page for cyber risk and operations, but their narrative was mostly around cybersecurity threat landscape. And that was typical throughout all the reports that I just named and other reports that I didn't add to this podcast that I also review follow the same theme. But since we're talking about risk, let me give you 2 risk definitions for some food for thought here. One is more IT-centric and the other more business-centric. So first, the IT-centric. Risk is an operational cybersecurity risk are defined as operational risks to information and technology assets with an impact affecting the confidentiality, availability, or integrity of the information or systems. The business-centric cyber risk is defined as the risk of financial loss, disruption, or damage to the reputation of an organization from some sort of failure of its information technology systems. Now, I'll put the citation for these 2 definitions in the show notes, but think a little bit. Based on the threat reports, I'm sure all of you have read one or another throughout the years, and I'm specifically talking about 8 here from 2019, but you can read any threat report and you will see that they don't quite address these. Now, you can be saying, hey, Dr. B, I don't agree with that definition and whatnot. There's several definitions out there. So pick any one that you want and then go back to the cyber report, the cyber threat reports, and see if they address it. I mean, there's a little bit for everyone here, but I can tell you this much. They do not address risk. Most of the risks that they start talking about end up being a discussion around the threat to the organization. But first is, what is the risk for doing? When you set up your security environment, you need to understand the risks to your organization. What particular threats do you worry about? You cannot secure everything in your organization. Where are the risks and where are the systems? You can go back on my other podcasts where I discuss in terms of security controls, identifying your critical cyber assets and whatnot. And you will understand that is a strategy. Now, in terms of attacks, well, I've seen in these reports, they go all over the place, but mainly, right? They have targeted phishing, social engineering, ransomware, malware, and they stay on those. But then when you look into what recommendations they have now, there's a few of them that are very biased, and it's more of a sale brochure than anything else, because at the conclusion and the recommendation is buy my software and whatnot. But the most mature reports are more objective and understanding for us to take a look at it. But when they say there in the conclusion, you need to implement this tool, you need to detect this way. But remember, phishing, but very few concludes and recommend increase, or at least on the top of the list, security awareness. And along with, phishing training and whatnot. But look at those reports and you will see for yourself. Social engineering, once again, is the most effective weapon here is education. Once again, they're going for the weak link in cybersecurity, which is the personnel. You and I are our peers, right? So some of the reports that I'll call out here for you in a second is part of the 8, but then again, I reached out to a few other companies that I'm going to bring here, and I'll name the company, I'll name the report, and most important, what they are focusing on those reports. So CrowdStrike is one that I call out also in the introduction of this podcast. They have the global threat report. Now, the focus of that report, once again, is on techniques of the adversaries. Silence, the 2019 threat report. They focus that report on top malware, the top 10 Windows and the top 5 OS hacks. The Bulletproof company, they issued the annual Cybersecurity report 2019. And the focus was on ransomware, crypto mining, card scheming, penetration test analysis, and whatnot. The darkmatter was one that I touched on my introduction. They issued this cybersecurity report. Their focus of that report is around threat actors, bios, and tactics and techniques. So they go behind the threat actor. They give you a little bio history, where they came from, what part of the world they are, and what tactics they use and techniques to attack their victims or their organizations, right? The next one's FireEye. They issued the threatscape 2020. Their focus is all over. So they try to cover a lot of ground on their reports. Say they focus on cyber attacks, source of those attacks, organizational maturity and resilience. Also initiatives, security operations, SIMs, cyber threat intelligence. So they try to cover a lot on that report. But they even get into organizational maturity. Now, here's the thing. This organizational maturity is based on a survey. So it's not actually going there and doing assessments or a third party doing assessment. Here's the results. But it's based on a survey. So I sent you a question to your organization, how you see your security program in your organization. Well, yeah, I see it. It is well implemented. I see it as mature. So you will get that result. So when you read these reports, just make sure you understand how that information was collected. Last but not least, I have Kaspersky here, and they issued the security bulletin in 2019, and it's completely focused on crypto ransomware. Now, you see the terms of the focus of these reports, and I just gave you, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, right? You see the focus of them is on the threat itself, but without the understanding what is the risk to your organization of this threat. What are the probabilities of these attacks hitting your organization, hitting your industry, and what it would be the impact based on what you've seen, based on your internal assessments, your controls assessments and whatnot. What would be the risk to your organization? So there's a big question that I'm trying to address here that is not covered in this report. So when you receive them, when you read them, try to understand and put under context. Yes, technically it is great. I have a tremendous problem with crypto ransomware. I'm gonna go. So when was the last time your organization, and here the listeners of this podcast could be from all sort of organizations and silos and countries, but think to yourself, be selfish here when you're thinking your organization, when crypto ransomware was a threat to your organization, was a number one threat, and it was a high risk to the crown jewels of your organization, right? So when you see that, okay, well, it is being talked about in 2 or 3 different reports, but that doesn't mean that you need to react to it. You need to have that strategy. You need to understand what is the probability impact to your organization that builds that risk. So read it well and how this affect you, right? And this is it in terms of the risk and the threat. So methodology, I want to touch a little bit on methodology. Some of these reports provide right up front, here's the methodology, how we come up with that information. So kudos to you. That is great, because I like to see that, a scientific method. I subscribe to that idea. I've done that for many years, and I like to be upfront so I can understand and better read your report under a context. So a few of these reports definitely have a methodology laid out. Perfect or not perfect in here, and that's not the point of conversation. The point is you have one that I can assist the reader in understanding where that information come from, what industry you did your research on, and what part of the country, because threats are different throughout the world. So that is perfect, but most of them, you see here as well, don't have a methodology. So that would be an improvement. I mean, for these industries or for these companies that are publishing these reports, to understand that a methodology is very important to put the conversation in the context as well. And with that, and align with understanding that you need to take that information and put under the risks to your organization, and it will become a little better in terms of holistically looking into this information. So I hope you understand what we're talking about here. I just want to put out there and how to read these reports and put under context, understanding methodology, understanding what a risk versus a threat conversation, understanding that this is just one part and one input of your entire cybersecurity resilience strategy. And those reports, I'm not bashing them, they are great, but I just want you to understand that you need to read them under context. You need to read them against the risks to your organization. Other than that, kudos to these companies. I appreciate for all the work they do, for all the hard work it is to put these reports together. And they offer for free for everyone. So amazing. I love them. I read them. And I just want to drop this little advice for you when you read them as well. Part of that complete security assessment on your organization, understanding the risks, the compliance, and the governance, and how to build that resilient cybersecurity program in the organization. All right. So, this is it for now. Please make sure to subscribe and leave a review in iTunes so you don't miss any future episodes. And I hope you don't. I'm glad you stopped by today, and I appreciate you for spending your time with me. And as I always say, the most expensive currency nowadays is time. I can tell you that, and I can tell you that my time is very valuable, and I appreciate you spending yours with me. All right. See you next time. This is Dr. B, your host. I'm out.